Peer review. There are three types of peer review you're likely to come across. The first is called single blind. This is when the peer reviewer knows the identity of the author, but the author does not know the identity of the peer reviewer. This is the most common type of peer review within science, technology, and medicine disciplines. The second type, double-blind peer review, is when all identities are hidden. This is the most common type within arts and humanities and social sciences. And lastly, there's open peer review, where all of the identities are known. Here are the main roles involved in the peer review process. The editor will assess the article to see if it is a good fit for the journal in terms of content and quality. He will then select reviewers, though sometimes they will assign manuscripts to other board members who will then find external reviewers. Once the editor receives the reports from the reviewers, they will make the final decision regarding publication. The peer reviewers read and assess the article and any data included. Most journals have 2 to 3 external reviewers assess a manuscript. They will write a short report suggesting additions and changes for the author and provide a recommendation to the editor regarding publication. And lastly, we have the journal staff, who are often a part of the publishing house. The journal staff is responsible for the systems that are used to run peer review. They do an initial check to make sure everything is in order and everything is included in the submission to a journal. They will also manage communications between authors, editors, and peer reviewers, and help if there are any technical issues with the peer review platform. So as you can see, there are many groups of people involved in the peer review process of just one article. Here's an overview of how peer review works in most cases. Your manuscript is submitted to the journal, and it goes through that initial check to see that everything is in order. If it's not formatted correctly or missing files or other components, it will be returned to you at this point with instructions on what to do. Once the files are in order, the submission is then sent to the editor for a quick review. The editor will decide if a paper should be sent out to peer review. At this stage, it can be rejected if it's out of scope of the journal, if it's not complete, if it's unreadable, not understandable. This is called a desk reject. If the paper is of interest, the editor will send it out for peer review, usually to 2 or more external reviewers who are specialists in the field. They will read the work and provide a report for the editor with recommendations for a decision. The most common recommendations are revise and resubmit with major revisions or with minor revisions. This means they're interested in your work, but have some suggestions on how you can make it even better. Your paper can also be rejected at this point. I have included accept and start it here. It is possible that your paper will be accepted without revisions, but it's highly unlikely. Every piece of writing can be improved upon. Once you make the revisions, you will resubmit to the editor, who will either accept it at that point or send it out again to the reviewers to see if they're happy with this new revision or have further comments. Now here's the bad news. Your paper can go through this process a couple of times and still be rejected. I'll tell you how to avoid that in just a moment. Many publishers and journals have introduced what is called cascading peer review. So cascading peer review is when the journal that an author submits to rejects the manuscript but suggests another journal that would be possibly a better fit. The author is given the option and can agree to the transfer or not. This can happen at 2 stages in the process. Here you see that after a desk reject, the author is given the opportunity to transfer to another journal. It can also happen after the manuscript has been sent out to external peer reviewers. They may suggest rejecting the article, but still think it is sound science, just not a good fit for that particular journal. At this point, the author will be given the option of transferring the submission to another journal. In some cases, the peer review reports can be transferred along with the manuscript. And in those cases, the editor may look at the manuscript and at the reports and make a decision right away, or they may choose to send it out for further review. The goal behind cascading and transfers is to offer greater services to authors and make peer review even more efficient. But again, it's always the author's choice. Responding to reviewers' comments is an important part of the publishing process. At times, when you receive the reviewer reports, it can feel like a rejection, especially if it's a revise and resubmit with major revisions. Try not to become upset. Close your computer and forget about it for a couple of days. When you are ready to get to work, carefully read the decision letter you receive from the editor. It may include advice on how to respond to the reviewer's comments and will provide information about deadlines for returning your revisions. If you have co-authors, set up a meeting to review all the reviewer comments. Make certain to share the reports with everyone prior to your meeting. Go through the reviewer reports and make a list with all of their suggestions for improvement. You may want to group the comments based on category, for instance, literature review, methods, etc. Go through the list and decide which of the recommendations you would like to adopt, and make those changes in the paper. Now here's the key to avoiding the fate of going through the revisions process a couple of times and still being rejected in the end. When you send back your revisions, you must include a note to the editor clearly detailing how you have addressed the peer reviewer's concerns. Where you have chosen to adopt the peer reviewer's recommendations, clearly detail what you have changed and where that change can be located in the paper. So give the page number and even the line. Now, some journals do welcome the use of track changes to help editors and peer reviewers see what you have done. So just check the instructions for authors and the peer review instructions to see if that is the case. Now, you will not agree with all the peer reviewers' recommendations. And in that case, you need to clearly and respectfully explain why you chose not to amend your paper. Be specific. For instance, if the peer reviewer thought you should cite another paper, but you feel it's out of scope of your project, explain why that is so that both the peer reviewer and the editor fully understand. Once you've detailed how you've addressed each of the peer reviewer's comments, review your response to the editor and make sure that you have included all the recommendations and actions that you've taken, and that you've done so in a clear manner, and that the letter is professional and devoid of any frustration. It can be a challenging process, so it's understandable that you may become a bit frustrated. It's just important that that does not influence the communication with the editor. Most importantly, remember to be respectful and professional during this process. This is your community and your future network. You may end up submitting to the journal again. You may be asked to peer review articles. You may want to become a board member one day, or you may want to collaborate with the individuals that are reviewing your paper. Keep this all in mind during the process. And remember, the editor and the peer reviewers are just trying to help you publish your very best work. Peer review is a gift. It may be a bit painful at times, but it is a gift nonetheless.